We're involved in welcoming refugees. We've got 4 families so far from Syria on the Vulnerable Persons Resettlement Scheme. Got another 2 families coming any time now during this month, and then we've got another 2 families coming in April. That will be our full complement, 8 families, which will probably be about 40 people in all with the size of the families. So what does this involve? It involves greeting them. And so when we first meet them, our church acts as a bit of a hub, and they arrive usually from Lebanon or Jordan, from an overnight flight. The existing Syrian families are there with some food for them, and we just welcome them, make them feel comfortable before they're taken to the homes that they live in. And then it involves befriending, just being there for them, coming alongside them. We're not counsellors, we're not professionals, we're just friends. We're being Jesus to them. And it involves listening. You get to hear a lot of stories, and as they learn English, they're more confident to share what happens to them. And rather than sort of respond and tell them, our objective view of it, we just sit there and listen. That's what they need. And then partnering. It's important, as Ruth said, to know what God's doing out there. And we're not going out there and reinventing the wheel. We're working with people who are already doing, probably unknowingly, the Lord's work out there. Ashfield District Council have got a real heart for refugees. And one of our guys used to be a director at the council, got us involved with them to talk about helping with housing. Taunton Housing Association have the contract on the scheme for this area, for the East Midlands. And they actually have a support worker, and we work really closely with her. We make sure that everything we do, we involve her, and if she doesn't want us to do anything, then we take very clear notice of what she says. And Welcome Churches, which is a Christian organisation that equips churches to work with refugees. They trained my wife and I, and they've trained a bigger team, and we couldn't have done it without them. And if you don't know where to start, go with them. They'll help you. And then connecting the organisations and the people up with people we know in the community. Now, this is my friend Yaya there, and that other guy, he's a bricklayer, was working on the building that's been built next to the church, and we got to know the builders really well. Very community-minded company, and they offered placements for the Syrian people, particularly Syrian men, to learn some skills. And so Yaya did a month with them, and he absolutely loved it. And we've been able to connect them up with all sorts of different groups in the community. So we're just there, bringing all things together in Christ, being that link there in the community. And eating. That's an important part of it. That's hard. That's really hard. And as you see, it has a bit of an effect. Syrian food is fantastic, and it's a real blessing to have the food. In fact, when you go there, whatever time of day you go, you'll get a meal. There's one family, whatever time of day, they'll have a big meal for us. So we just fast until we go and see them. Wonderful food. And of course, culturally, it's important to sit there and eat their food with them. And it's not rocket science. It's just being Jesus, being friends with people. So if you're concerned about refugees in your area, if you've got a real heart for them, and I know there's quite a number in Mansfield, it's not a massive thing. It's just being yourself, showing the love of Jesus in a practical way. If you want to know more, do come and talk to us. We'd love to encourage you and help you more on that.
So Trinity Baptist Church is a small church family who meet in Green Lane, which is in the centre of Derby. This area of the city is a deprived area and has a business improvement district group that meet to maximise opportunities for the businesses in the area. And I went along to these meetings and listened to what the businesses were doing in trying to effectively create community in Derby and work together for each other's benefits. And what they do is focus on a street for a day at different times during the year. And on August the 7th, they were focusing on Green Lane. So we offered to join in, and we said, can we call it Loving Green Lane Day? And it began at 7 o'clock in the morning, cleaning the streets, volunteers from many different local businesses, and the church and the council working together. That's John and Alan from our church joining in there. and we got to play with the council's machinery. The wonderful thing was, there's the gathered group from Tesco, from McDonald's, from NCP, other local businesses, and then we cooked them breakfast. And had opportunity to sit and talk to all of these different volunteers. And that's one of our local councillors as well who was there. And we asked the shops to put a poster in their windows, just in our street. And on that, for that one day, to give little green hearts, which said Loving Green Lane on them. And all of the shops said yes. And here's some of the shopkeepers. And they sent, once the customers had these little green hearts, they could bring them up to the church. We were at the top of the hill and exchange them for a gift. That's the pastor of the street who actually owns the children's shoe shop, and he is the man who has cared deeply for this road and who I'm working closely with now. And that's the guy who owns the vaping shop, who sent quite a few people up to us. And the police were involved on the day. Those are two of the community police, and they were giving advice on security. And there they are, they came up and had breakfast with us as well. And whilst that was all going on, we were open all day. And we had homemade cakes. We're good at making cakes. And we're good at talking, so we chatted and listened. And we had a guided art exhibition. So there's also quite a number of artists amongst our church family. So that was all laid out. And as people walked around, you could have conversations with them, because they were looking at the art. And it's easier to talk to somebody beside them, isn't it? And had some amazing conversations as people went through. And we had a children's art table, and a couple of the younger guys who came in from the vaping shop spent at least an hour at the children's art table, and that drew other adults who joined in with the art. And in the corner, we also had a prayer corner so that people could engage with God in a more specific way. And we were the meeting point for tours of Green Lane. Because of its designated deprivation, money is being spent renovating buildings by a historical architect who's supervising, and he was doing tours of the road. So everyone came to church to meet. And since that day, we have continued to share cakes. Every 3 weeks, we go and take cakes to all the shops and businesses. And we also have the church open on that day so that anyone can drop in to chat, to do craft, to visit our quiet space. So in all of that, the principles that I have recognised from what we've been doing are seeing who else loves this area, and then and people who are already working to change it, and join them. Particularly being a small church, we couldn't do anything like this on our own, but joining with what's already happening and knowing what we can do. Of course, God does much more, but it's good to start with some skills that we have, which is being welcoming, baking cakes, and we've got the premises that we can use. And thirdly, no one-offs. So we've continued with the cake, and we're trying other things, and so far they've all failed. We have tried a community choir to sing at our community, Green Lane Community Carol Service. That might work, we'll see. But nobody from outside has come to the choir, although a few people have asked about it. And we are going to sing carols on the street, and we're inviting the street to join us. We have sent leaflets through all the doors of all the local residents, and we will keep putting on events and consistently being there and listening and sharing with the community. We're going to make a little decoration for every business in the street.
When I arrived at the church had already been engaging in work with homelessness, people with addictions and mental health. And I'd hosted the winter night shelter here for about 3 years before I arrived. That was in partnership with the council and with other agencies in town. So I volunteered for the winter night shelter, which had left here at that point at another church. I was cooking breakfast in there for the guests, and I met quite a few of them chatting, but didn't. It was a tremendous privilege to do it, and to serve in that way. But a few months after, one of the people who'd been in the night shelter, one of the guests, it was after a service, he said, he turned up here and he said, "Can you baptise me?" So, of course, I said, well, I'm not really sure about that. The new Baptist minister said, "Yeah, of course, let's have a chat." And I've known this guy for quite a while from one of my last jobs on and off. And so we baptised him. And at the same time, I was going through kind of like trying to find out, what am I going to do with this church that God has led us to? And we came with quite a vision of discipleship and one-to-one kind of discipleship and making disciples who make disciples. But in that process, God turned around a whole kind of transition of thinking. And I came across something called disciple-making movements, which are occurring across the globe. And I was very interested in that process and quite challenged by it. And but one of the things was it about is that you have a Bible study that you invite non-Christians to come to and bring their friends. So, of course, I thought that's bonkers. Nobody's going to do that. And but anyway, we baptised this chap that I knew. And I just really thought, right, well, I'll have a little prod at this just to see, just in case. And I said, because I was going to disciple this person myself, meet, regular one-to-one sessions. And I just said, if we were to come up to your place, who would you invite to come? And he said, well, I've got my neighbours upstairs. There's a lady I speak to down the street. And then there's somebody else who we know that hangs around that would invite to come to this. Well, I thought, okay, let's go with this. So I ended up going up to a place outside of Mansfield. And it's a place where it's a supported housing project, fantastic help to people who have mental health, who've got drug issues, coming out of homelessness and recovery and all those things. And quite a small community of people that live there with those issues. So I came in, we started this Bible study off. It was quite chaotic. We had a fantastic meal. We ate amazing crumble. The neighbours came down. They were in, they were out for a cigarette. There was a guy who turned up on a motorbike outside. I thought just a friend. Apparently he was a drug dealer trying to give these guys drugs. And they were saying to him, well, we're going to do a Bible study. Why don't you come in? So I'm sat there like this is out of my experience. And so we did the Bible study. We looked at Genesis chapter 1 with people who are not Christians at all. Some have got quite, severe drug problems still, and maybe some mental health and that sort of thing. But just sat there. This has been going on for about 6 weeks now, and gradually, the guy's partner we baptised last Sunday morning, and. But I was sat there thinking that the transformation that is taking place in these people's lives is beginning to transform others and transform that community where they live. So much so, we've called it the group, the little light on the hill, because their support workers have noticed that these people have stopped having a chaotic life, taking drugs, and are now serving others. People, they're beginning to meet together, people in that little community, for meals. One of them said, I would have never come to your house because you were a chaotic fethead and I would have had nothing to do with you. And yet these people are beginning to form relationships with one another. And I was sat yesterday, we did a little Bible study on Hosea chapter 3, about Hosea inviting his prostituted wife to come back. And I'm thinking, what are they going to get out of this? And actually, they came out with some of the most deeply profound truth. And it was just an incredible change. So to see the change in these people and being where God is at work, because God spoke to this person way outside of our church. It was nothing to do with us. God was at work out there, and we followed him on. We could have done the discipling here, you know, in my office or a nice little comfy room, but no, it's up where they live that's began to change that little bit of a community.